From the American Revolutionary War to the recent battles in the Middle East, women have played a vital role in the Army. Ever since Molly Pitcher replaced her husband when he collapsed at his cannon, women have worked hard to overcome the idea that there's no place for them on the battlefield. The role of women in the military has changed drastically over the last century. In the past 10 years, more than 200,000 women have served in Iraq and Afghanistan, and they now comprise a little more than 14% of the active duty force. Despite a Pentagon policy that's designed to prevent women from being on the front lines, many have found themselves in direct ground combat situations. The unique nature of the culture in the Middle East made their role a necessity. Houston native Patricia Aquino is a former staff sergeant who served for 14 months overseas.
In Afghanistan, I was part of what's called a female engagement team. Because of the cultural restrictions in Afghanistan, it's not easy for male military members to have access to the Afghan female population. So what they did is they trained a group of female Marines so that they could then attach them to male infantry units. And so what we would do is we would go on patrols with them and assist them with engaging with people and accessing that female population, earning that trust and gaining that confidence.
The question over whether women should serve on the front lines is one that has been debated for quite some time. In 2003, America held its breath as 19-year-old Jessica Lynch became the first woman ever to be taken prisoner by enemy forces. Shortly after she was captured, Army Rangers pulled off a daring rescue at an Iraqi hospital where she was being held. The question of whether or not they want to work alongside women on the front lines all depends on who you ask.
In the Marine Corps, we don't separate the gender. We don't say that's a woman Marine, this is a male Marine. We all Marines. You know, just because they're a different gender than us, they will pick up a rifle, they will shoot down range just like everybody else.
I think that the argument that women are just as strong as men, that's all great. But I feel that when I was in combat, that as men we have the instinct to protect women, and if I was to see a woman die in combat, that would emotionally really wreck my heart. And I believe that that's one of the main reasons why they should not be with us in combat.
As a military police, it's dual. I mean, it's both men and females, and all straight across the board, and both are expected to do the same exact job. So there's no, certain job for females or certain job for males. It's all the same. And it's one of the few MOSs or jobs in the military that you'll see that for the last however many years. Now they're talking about females being in combat arms and infantry and that, and then they're perfectly capable. I mean, there should be no different.
Though the men may differ on the subject, all of them agree that those who volunteer to put their life on the line deserve the same respect. And for the women who risk it all for their country, it's something that they're rightfully proud of.
This particular group of women that I served with, they were already unique in the fact that they had done something that most women will never do, and that's become U.S. Marines. And all of them, at some point or another, were in a situation where they were in the line of fire or maybe in an explosion. And I hope that some of the things that we accomplished while we were over there, I hope that those have had a lasting impact on those communities.
As the wars continue to play out in the Middle East, Hollywood has begun telling the stories of some of our most courageous soldiers. In 2012, Hollywood filmmaker Peter Berg brought the true story of Marcus Luttrell to the big screen. Marcus is a retired Navy SEAL who co-authored the book Lone Survivor in 2007. The film was adapted from the book that spent 12 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list. Many of our troops understandably approached the movie with caution.
I wasn't ever in the same situation as Lone Survivor, obviously, but even stuff like that, even though you're not in that same situation, I've been in firefights, I've been shot at, I've had that risk. So seeing it and knowing that it's a true story and knowing that it really happened to somebody, And once again, seeing his brothers fall, it's definitely emotional that you try and suppress, you try and keep away because it's so debilitating emotionally.
I've always enjoyed war movies. I remember the early age with my dad always watching war movies, and so he'd always describe, okay, that's real footage, no, that's not real footage. But recently, after being over there, a lot of my veteran friends, my guys I served with, we will watch it and we'll just pick it apart going, I can't believe Hollywood did that. But then you get a film that's pretty close to right on and it just hits you in. And I got to prepare. I was living in New Mexico when Lone Survivor came out. It was filmed there because it's so identical to Afghanistan. And the fact that was one of my favorite books reading. I've been kind of tied into that whole story. I was in Afghanistan when that took place, when Operation Red Wing went down. At the time we were in Bagram. And I remember the funeral procession for all those guys that went down, all the SEALs.
It's tough to see those, military movies from Hollywood. It really is. Well, I, for one, can't enjoy them too much because I'm always correcting it. Just that's not what we do. But the biggest one that did impact me was Lone Survivor, because it was so real. I remember going to see it, and I couldn't sit there and watch it. I had to get up, and I told my wife I got to get out. And I got up about 3-4 times in the movie, and it wasn't because it wasn't made well. It was so real.
3, 2, 1, action!
Everything was real to me, and it's something that I've gone through, and that's what happened. That's probably the closest I've seen a movie come to reality of it.
Though some of our troops have seen many of the movies that portray their time on the battlefield, many understandably do not. The memory of the atrocities they witnessed during their time overseas is too painful to return to. The same can be said for the pilots and medics who entered the line of fire to save lives on the battlefield. They are oftentimes the unsung heroes, and though they rarely engage in combat, they are some of the most respected and loved members of our military. Before ever stepping foot onto the field of battle, they go through extensive training that prepares them for virtually every scenario.
I have a special appreciation for medics and corpsmen. They, especially our medics. Our medics are some of the highest trained medics in the military. We have such an extensive program that we have them go through, almost like a selection process that they have to pass before they can get there and to our unit. In fact, one of the guys, it's almost a 2.5 year program, so they could come in the Army. By the time they're trained to get to our unit and gone through the selections, they're almost a sergeant, if not already a sergeant, by the time they get there. And the experience and the knowledge that they bring is tremendous.
Our troops on the ground feel safer knowing that they have friends in the air, ready to help at a moment's notice. John Cornelius is a pilot based out of Bagram Airfield. Over the years, his unit has seen more action than most. Though he takes a lot of pride in his job, he spends each day hoping not to get the call to go into work.
I can't think of a job that every day is this important. It's a life-saving mission. It's also the worst day of someone's life. So while we like to do our job, we don't like to do our job. I'd rather spend the time training, ready, postured to complete the mission, but if we don't fly, it's a good day.
Stay with us. When we return, we'll hear from celebrities who proudly give back to our service members, and we'll find out how one veteran is honoring his fallen brothers with a memorial tribute unlike any other.